We're in Sefer Yetzira EP9, and we're speaking about the 10 spheres. The 10 spheres that we learned are the soul of the 22 letters. And together there are 32 forces or 32 aspects of a force. It depends on which level you're looking. If we look in the physical world, we would call them 32 forces. If we look at the essence from where they came forth, we would say there are 32 aspects of the same being. And they are responsible for all animation. All 32 are responsible for animation, but the 10 are animating the 22. And so there will be no movement in the 22, and of course there will be no movement anywhere else in the world, anywhere else in existence, if there isn't movement from the 10. And in the 10, we can split that further, and we could say that there won't be movement in the 10th if there wasn't movement in the previous 9, because the previous 9 are what animate the 10th. The Malchus, Lesla Migar Maklim, she wouldn't move on her own. She's only moving because something within the 9 moved. Specifically, the 9th, the Yesod. If there was nothing moving in the Yesod, there can be no change in the Malchus, because the Yesod is the only part of the 9 that goes into the Malchus in order to deliver that movement. The Yesod is the animator of everything that happens above him. But the Yesod will not be animated unless the 5 midas above him are active. Specifically, the last 2, Netzach v'Hoid. Netzach v'Hoid animate the Yesod. There's no movement in the Yesod if there hasn't been movement in Netzach v'Hoid. Netzach v'Hoid are animated by the Tiferes. The Tiferes is animated by the Chesed and the Gvura. And so between Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, Netzach, and Hoid, the Yesod is receiving movement that he's going to deliver into the Malchus. And there will be no movement in the 5 midas unless there's movement in the Moichin. Unless there's movement in the Chochmah and the Bina. Together, they're creating movement in the 5 midas. Together, they're creating a das. A das is going to express itself as 5 midas, 5 attributes that the intelligence is now directing, and the Yesod that's going to deliver that to the Malchus. And there would be no movement in the Moichin if there isn't an inspiration from the Keter. So the Keter is responsible for all movement. Nothing in the 32 is going to move. And the Lachas Kama V'Kama even more so. Nothing outside, nothing in this world, nothing in any world is going to move unless there was movement in the Keter. There was a desire, there was a reason, there was a cause. Something is now coming forth and manifesting within intelligence in order to create a reality. There will be no movement in the Keter unless the Infinite One, blessed be his name, has desired such movement. For there we have no name. Most parts of this process cannot be perceived, but we have names for them. But what happens beyond the Keter, we have no name. But the Keter is receiving from somewhere. The Keter is not his own man. And so everything in this process is demonstrating something from beyond that we are trying to get to know, that no one has ever known, that is completely unknowable, and yes, yet we all have a relationship with him, the most important relationship we have. That's the relationship that's going to survive all the processes. Everything that's going to happen is still going to be just a part of that greater relationship. Many relationships are going to cease while we're still alive. Many relationships will cease upon our death. Many relationships will cease upon us perceiving a higher reality. And yet this relationship, not only will it never cease, it's going to become more and more real and more intense. The more our vessel is going to expand to understand the seriousness, the greatness, the importance of what we're interacting with, the more we are going to receive the light that results from that relationship that we know as existence, life. And so everything that happens, that comes forth in this process, comes forth through the Keter and represents the divine power that is beyond word, beyond measure, beyond name, beyond letter. And so we're learning about the 10, meaning we're learning about these intelligences, forces, aspects of the one that give shape and form to what came forth. Because they are the way that they are, we are the way that we are. Because we act the way that we act, they react to us the way that they react. They're directly involved in our process. They're animating us. Every thought, every speech, every action, if we inspect it, if we investigate, we will find the footprints of these attributes as they give form to whatever manifests. They are the soul of the action. They are the soul of the speech. They are the soul of the thought. It's the attribute that's animating the thought. The attribute that's animating the speech. Why is he saying? Why is he doing? Behind that why, there's a soul. There's a spiritual movement. There's a spiritual process. That's why. And then there's above that why. This why, the first why the action, why the speech, this is called the nekudas, the vowels that animate the letters. But beyond that why, there's a deeper why. Why was the machine designed to react this way? This is the tamim. This is the reasons, the tastes. To feel the taste of how sweet it is that it was designed to do that based on this. That it was designed to react in such a way to this specific situation. There's a sweetness to it. That's the tam. That sweetness cannot be felt by one who hasn't prepared the vessel to understand the importance of the process. If the process is not important, there is no sweetness to knowing this truth. This sweetness only becomes sweet as the process becomes more real and more important, as we are more faithful to the process, as we believe and trust the process. This wisdom becomes sweet. It sweetens the entire being. It reattaches the soul to its original desire to exist. And so here he says in Mishnah Vav, Eser Sfiras Blima, Tzviyoson Kemaria Bozek, V'tachlison En Lehem Ketz. The 10 spheres that have no form, they can be viewed like the sight of lightning. And their purpose has no end. And so this means that if one were to try to observe the interaction between the spiritual and the physical, where does the soul gain access to the body? How does the soul animate the body? Where is this taking place? And so if we want to observe that, we will see a light, a spiritual light that awakens within the body that lasts as long as a lightning. As soon as you look at it, it's gone. As soon as you look at the animation of an attribute within the body, you can no longer see it. This is how quickly the spiritual converts into physical. And then we see the residue of it. We see what it left behind. It was there for 1 second like a lightning. And yet now, as a result, there might be action, there might be speech, there might be thoughts that are going to continue for decades, for hundreds of years, for thousands of years. While it happened like a lightning. But the spiritual is so condensed, it's so powerful, it's so real, that the physical is going to digest that spiritual moment for as long as it will require in order for that spiritual impulse to materialize. And so as an example, in the time of Avraham Avinu, there's a spiritual impulse that awakens. There's communication between an individual within the process and the unity that desired the process. Avraham Avinu somehow makes contact with a deeper aspect of the divine. And there's an interaction, there's communication, there's realization. Whatever animated that moment is still being digested by humanity. We still haven't gotten to the end of that process of what was that inspiration? What did it mean? We as his great grandchildren, are still chewing over that inspiration so that we can digest it. And the same goes for Matan Torah, the moment of revelation, where the greater self revealed itself to the individual selves. That was a moment. And that moment in time is still being digested by humanity. Humanity hasn't come to terms with what that means and what we're supposed to do as a result of that. And so when we observe, as we're talking now, there are spiritual reactions. The attributes have reactions to these words, but their reactions are like sparks of lightning. There's a tiny little fire that lights up within the organs, and immediately it disappears. And then there's a pregnancy. There's something that was left behind by that spiritual force that's now going to direct what needs to happen. And so Kemari Abozik, like division of lightning. But Tachlison, meaning their purpose, their end result, their greatness, their magnitude, their power, has no limit. If one has an insight and he observes himself as he is being animated by the attribute of kindness, he is feeling love. He sees the spiritual appear within the physical, and he feels the impact of that communication. This is not the limit of the attribute. This doesn't fairly represent the attribute. All we can say is that this is a ray of that original source. But this ray in no way represents the brightness of the source. This ray is a very darkened version of what was released by the attribute of kindness. This ray is as far as this body can go, as far as this vessel can stretch, in order to interact with this bright light. And so what we are experiencing is not the limit of the attributes. What we are experiencing is our own limits. The attributes are way bigger than our limits. The attribute of kindness is responsible for the fact that we can be here even when we hate each other and we're in conflict with each other and humans are killing each other. The attribute of kindness is holding us in place while we are violating it. And so our perception of love is nowhere close to the attribute of love. No man can contain that love. That love is revealed to the righteous when it's their time to pass. They get a tiny bit of a deeper relationship with that love. And then the body can no longer contain them. This is called dying by a kiss, misos neshika. The kiss is the wisdom demonstrating the depths of his love, just a little bit beyond what that body can carry, in order to attract it to something while it's being removed from something. And so the tachlis of these dimensions are not perceivable because they don't exist. Just how the infinite is infinite, so too all his attributes are infinite. It's the physical matter that gives limit to what we can draw and survive, to what the imagination can gain access to what we are ready to experience. V'dibru b'hem berotze v'shoiv. When we speak about these forces, when we try to get close to these forces, we have to speak and return. Go towards and come back, because the greatness of these forces, by definition, means that our body will not be able to contain too much of them. And so we have to gain access. We have to learn how to expand the vessel so that it can contain more of their light. And so we approach the attributes, we experience the attributes, and then we return to the material world and we care for the body so that it can recover from that exposure. And then again, we go to the attributes, we get to know the attributes, and we return. Because there's a tremendous excitement in the body as we are redefining our beliefs and we are re-understanding reality. The body cannot contain the truth if it's revealed all at once. And so whenever we're dealing with getting to know the truth, it has to be a matter of a process, not because the truth is toxic, but because our bodies have already been intoxicated with lies. And if we're going to reveal the truth to the body in a state where it cannot handle the truth, something will suffer, there will be damage. And so the truth is revealed in a process that's called rotze v'shoiv. We learn more, we back away. We discover more, we back away. We experience more, we back away. This is how we prepare the vessel to go deeper and deeper. Ilam hamorei ksufo yirdoifi. V'lifnei kislehem ishtachavim. Even the attributes, even the spheres, they desire the source that gives them life. the source that gets revealed in the Keter and is the one that feeds all of them, they are in complete and absolute love and surrender to him. They melt by the beauty of his process. They desire connection with him to the extent that we can speak about them, because they are not separate from him. They are revelations of aspects of him, so that the embodied ones can relate to him. But these aspects of him will never get into conflict with him in any way. They are completely surrendered to him. All they want is to give him joy and pleasure and reveal his glory. And so they desire that he be pleased with the way that they manifest the process. And they all bow before his throne. They all bow before the levels that he created for his revelation. And bowing in ancient times meant subordination. It meant surrendering the will. To bow is to surrender your individual will to whoever it is you're bowing to. That's the meaning of the gesture. This is the natural language that was so natural to humanity at some point, and now the cultures have simply forgotten our nature, so they no longer understand the most natural gestures that we were designed with, that were true for all cultures. And so their desire is to please the one. They know their place. And within the individual, the same happens. The individual has all these forces because the individual is a small world. He's a microcosm. Everything that we are saying about the collective, everything we are saying about the one that was before time, we are also saying about the one within you that was before time, before you became physical. That one. He has his 10 spheres. He has his aspects of manifestation, how he is revealed. And they are aligned with him. There is no conflict between the one and his attributes, his aspects. They are the same essence. They are the same being. They are the same one. Conflict comes much later. But when the manifestations create conflict and separation, this conflict and separation, it doesn't go back all the way to the one, not by the individual and not by the collective, but it does hinder the one's ability to reveal himself, also by the individual and also in the collective. And then the one is one, but his name is no longer one. His name, his revelation, his ability to be, his ability to discover his own truth so that it's known to all his parts. That gets damaged by separation and conflict. And so when we say that the goal is that in all of humanity, he should be king and his name should be one, It means that we're going to learn how, on our individual level, in the small world, the one should be king and his name should be one. We have to discover him. We have to find him between all the wreckage, between everything we've piled up on him. We have to find the one that was buried, and we have to bring him back to his throne. So that all the forces can remember who they are serving. This is how we can comply with the greater process. When we do individually what the collective needs collectively. So that we're not an obstacle. If there's separation and conflict within us, we're a direct obstacle to the process of the collective. And so all must recognize the one and bow to his throne. This is the purpose of the process. This is one of the symptoms of intelligence, is when everything knows its place. Everything gets to be what it was designed to be. This is where happiness and joy can reside. This is where love becomes evident. This is where belief and trust in the process becomes natural, the way that it was when we were born. This is where the unity can become king. And then all the processes unite. The world can heal and renew itself. The world is constantly in a process of renewal. But sometimes humans are obstructing that process. Sometimes humans are in the way and the world cannot heal. Sometimes humans are attacking the world in various ways. Spiritually, with their energy, emotionally, or even physically, the way that they interact with the resources that nature provides for us. Everything has to return to the unity. Everything has to serve the one. This is the design. This is the only way it can be. This is the only way it can work. Now we're going to look in the parish. So it says, Yitzvir is blimat tzviosen kamaria bozek. Atzvir is tzofes imabita zibizi. Yesh mefoshin the tzviosen, what does it mean to see? And so they say it means to see the side that the spheres have of each other, how they animate each other until they get to the Malchus. Atzviyahi, that sight is Kamara Bozek, is like the speed of lightning. It's like a light that goes out between broken pieces of earth-made vessels, meaning when there are cracks within vessels, the light can come through these cracks and it looks like lightning. And these lights animate. And this is the sight, this is the vision of the spheres between each other. You take a vessel that has small holes. You'll cover fire with it. You'll blow the fire. It's live until a big flame comes up. ימשכם מנסיבס הנקובה מה שבכל נקב ונקב שבחר, זכותן של הביס ציבורס בכל מיני צבועים, אוילם ויורדים בנסיבס הנקובה. So if you do that, within these little holes of the vessel, there will be like tiny threads of flame, different colors, going up and down within the lanes of these little holes. And so it says, Ken tzvius achayis, oile b'nesibes el achayis asher lemala men, ki yesh kisa lekisa v'kovid lekovid. The same way, the language of the spiritual is like lightning. And this relates to what's happening in the brain. If we were to observe the brain, we would see the synapses send signals between each other that are at the speed of lightning. And this is what lights up the animation of the brain. This is how the brain comes to conclusions, is through these communications at the speed of lightning that reveal something deeper, that reveal a life force that has a purpose and has a design and has a will. And it's coming through in these signals. So the vision of these angels of the life force go up in the lanes to the life that is beyond it, because there's a throne to a throne and glory to the glory. Meaning that there are layers upon layers of life until it comes to the individual, and the individual gives it meaning and shape and expresses that in thought, in speech, and in action. And so throughout this process, each layer goes above it in order to receive, and the communication happens through this process of light that is at the speed of lightning. When they look towards each other to receive, they will send sparks of light, of shining, to the chashmal. The chashmal is the place from where life gets revealed. And these have many different colors, meaning they animate the human being in many different directions and with many different flavors. The human is having different experiences based on what they are seeing. Because they respect the Shechina, which is the Malchus, they don't stare at the source of life. That's disrespectful. But they do it with humility. They come to the source of life with humility, and that's how they receive. So when they look, it's a quick look. At the speed of lightning, that is revealed and then hidden in the blink of an eye. Just like these threads of flame that go up and down at the blink of an eye. From here, those who learn the secrets concluded, if you see a person that has a difficult time keeping eye contact with you, he keeps on looking at the ground and looking back at you and then looking back to the ground, know that he respects you or fears you. So it's hard for him to look straight at you. It's like your light, your presence is too powerful for his spiritual eyes. And so he's constantly looking away. If he doesn't have a problem making eye contact, and he doesn't look down, know that he disrespects you in his heart. Your presence is not registered as something meaningful. And so he has no problem staring straight at you. In the same way, the pasuk says, a man cannot see me and live. Moshe Rabbeinu wants to see the face of that light. He wants to fully engage with it And the light says this wouldn't be possible for you. You are not at a level where you can remain stable at the revelation of my essence, the revelation of my glory. Not even the angels of the heart that create the life force, that receive directly from the life force and manifest that into a pulse. Even the angels who are creating the pulse and they're receiving directly from the life force, they cannot look at the life force. If they would look at the life force, they would be consumed by it, and then who's going to run the heart? Therefore, they look at the speed of lightning. Another way of explaining it, Tzviyason means mar'eyan, the way that they are seen. They have colors like the vision of lightning. So these commentaries explain it to mean that which color appears in the Malchus when the spheres are animating it, it depends on which sphere is animating it. The Malchus is going to receive a color according to the sphere that's animating it. And so Kemar Abazik means it has many different colors. If we look at the mood, if we look at the root of our manifestation of why are we thinking the way that we're thinking and why are we speaking the way that we're speaking, when we look at that mood, we're going to see a color that is not based on the root that's animating us. This is based on which attribute is now active in him. The root is transparent, but what's animating us, this is the color that we're going to find him in. If he's in a state of love, then he's going to be like white and clean. If he's in a state of anger, he's going to seem red and more heated up. If he's in a state of compassion, there's going to be a balance. And so everything that's happening within the Malchus is because it's being animated by the higher forces, and they are the ones that are giving it their color. Another way, Tzviyasan Kamari Abozek is another way of explaining. This is the one that we explained when we explained the Mishnah, that when the one who is perceiving is trying to perceive these lights that are animating him, Yeda, he should know, sometimes he will see their sparks until it seems to him like it's lightning. And immediately they disappear. And they will appear and disappear. Because this is the nature of the interaction. This is how the communication takes place. ותכליסן אין להם קיץ פרש, כבר ידעת שכל שני צבועים, כמו על דרך מושל הלובן והשוחר, קשי ימושך הלוב מצד אחד וימשך השוחר אצלו, יהיה הצבע המחבר בין שניהם עורב מלובן בשחלס, לפיכך אין הלובן ממש ולא שוחר ממש. לפיכך חום התכליסן של הסיריוס עצום אין להם קיץ. כי הם צוי כל המשלם, ותכליסן אין להם קיץ. So it says, you can mix and match these colors, these flavors, these ways of interacting in so many different combinations that there's no limit to what they can become, what can come out of them. There's so many different ways of dealing with them. דברי בהם רוצה ושוי פרש כי הספירס אשר הם בכלל התפארס הנקרא דובר, כל ספירה היא ספירה מהם יחוזה ברוצה ושוי. פרש רוצה חוכמה היא פרש שוי בינה, לא שהם רוצים ותשובה. As it says, speech that comes through the Tiferes reveals the wisdom, and it reveals the understanding. The wisdom means it reveals something about the greater self, the collective, because the individual is part of the collective, and he speaks for the collective, and it reveals something about the individual. And so what it reveals about the collective is called Rotzoy. It's bringing us closer to the bigger picture. What it reveals about the individual is called Shoiv, which means returning to the heart, returning to the individual state that we're in. So when we interact with the collective, we go towards the collective, and then we come back to the individual, because we have to remain an individual. If we get completely absorbed in the collective, then our body cannot contain us. The body is the body of an individual. And so we interact with the collective in a way where the speech reveals the collective and brings us back to the individual. Berotzei v'shoiv. Ilamamor eksufa yedoifi perish hadibur. V'amamor yedoifi lahasi gertzu bereshis rotzulem rabina. He says speech has a desire to find favor in the eyes of thought and intelligence. So the attributes of speech, as they manifest as speech, their desire is to unite with thought and intelligence through joy. Then the speech is a faithful speech. Then the speech has reached its objective. If the speech offends the understanding, if the speech offends the intelligence, then speech has just lost life instead of gaining life. The purpose of the speech has been defeated. And so with the speech that comes forth from the attributes is trying to please the intelligence, the source from where the attributes come forth. Before his throne, what's before his throne is all the levels that are below the Bina. The lower attributes are a throne for the higher attributes. So Vav Hey in the name represents the 6 attributes of the Tiferet, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and the last Hey is the Malchus. And so Yah, which is Yud Hey, Chachma and Bina, they're the king, and the throne is the Vav Hey. That's why it says, Ki Yad al Keis Yah. There is a hand on the throne of Chachma and Bina. Milchama Lashem ba'amalek midor dor. Every generation, the throne wants to become prepared for the Chachma and the Bina, and Amalek does not allow it to happen. And so there's a constant conflict between the throne that wants to become, the attributes that wants to align with the original will, so that the Malchus can become accurate, and Amalek that is in conflict with that purpose, is in conflict with that process, and doesn't allow it to come forth accurately. And so the Bina, which is the king, she sits on a throne, which is the 6 attributes and the Malchus. The face that's above the throne is the Keser and the Chachma, that they're above the Bina. So, the speech, which is the attributes, that comes out into words, which is the Malchus, they are bowing to the Keser, the source, and the wisdom, in order to bring forth abundance to those who are present. And so just like when a human being speaks, the relationship of the speech with his intelligence and his desire is what's going to result in the quality of his speech. And so too, in the creation, where it's B'dvar Hashem Shemayim Nasu, creation happens through the divine speech. The divine speech is yearning to attach to the will and to the intelligence that's creating it. And so they bow before the throne. So they want to demonstrate, they want to testify that they represent the higher unity, that they come forth in order to reveal his glory. Another way of explaining these words, you can speak about the spheres, but you have to go in and out. You speak about wisdom, you speak about how wisdom reveals itself, how one aspect of the divine, how the intelligence reveals its power within creation. But then you have to return and speak about Bina, speak about the level that receives from that intelligence and draws and creates form. Because how do we know about this intelligence if not through the form that was created by the Bina? And so we can't speak about one sphere without using the other spheres in order to explain it. Like, how do I know about Chachma? Oh, didn't you see that Bina? Oh, but how do I know about Bina? Well, don't you see that the attributes have some type of a relationship? And how do I know about the attributes? Well, don't you see that there's a manifested reality and that is receiving from something deeper? And so as I'm speaking about the spheres, I'm speaking B'ratzav V'shoiv. I'm going from one sphere to the other. Each sphere I want to explain, I'm going to explain using other spheres. So that's in the lower spheres. But about the Ketzer Elyon, which is the will for these spheres that we can't relate to, this you receive with faithfulness, that there is that source behind it that wants it. So even though that source cannot be defined, and there's no form that can contain them, don't try to think there. Because the very definition of thought means that it's below the place that can enter. It's not possible for thought to reach there. So they want the Malchus. So this is how in this interpretation, this is how the continuation happens between what he said before and what he's saying now. So he said the lower spheres, you can speak about them, you can go back and forth and speak about different spheres and try to explain them, but you cannot explain the highest sphere. Yet, even for the highest spheres, we want to engage with the Malchus, we want to get to know the Malchus, because through that we will get to know the will of the higher one, of the one that we cannot speak about. And so they speak about the spheres, they really want to understand the Malchus, they want to understand the end product that he created, because from there they will get to know his will. And then he says that this is where we see in the pasuk, Atuhu Hashem levadecha. This is Atuhu, is the Chachma. That's like the Father. And Hashem levadecha is the Bina. Atu Sisas Hashemayim, meaning the Chachma created, the Father created the Shemayim, which is the Tiferes, where the Eish and the Mayim, the Gedula and the Gevura get together, the Chesed and the Gevura, the right and the left, in the middle. That's called Shamayim, Esh v'Mayim. Shmei HaShamayim are the moichin, the higher spheres that are above the heavens, which is the Bina and the Chachma. V'chol tzvaim, what's the tzva Shamayim? Who are the soldiers of the Shamayim? The 6 attributes. So they have the power of the Shamayim. They have the power of the Esh and the Mayim, of the right and the left, and they're the ones who manifest. Ha'oretz v'chol asher aleyo is the Malchus. Hayamim v'chol asher behem is everything that got created. Ve'ata machayas kulam, you are the one who gives life to all of it. Itzva Shamayim l'chol mishtachavim. All the armies are worshiping you, are bowing to you. This is the Keser Elyon, this is the divine will that comes forth from the infinite. So everything that happens in reality is subordinated to the source. And that source is what lives in all these different levels. It's always his will, different aspects of his will that come forth and give form to the undefinable. There he says, another way of learning Tachlisan en lehem ketz, that there is no end to these attributes, to the spheres, says, Im tema metzias geshem echad en le tachlis sheker ve'ech yomer v'tachlisam en lehem ketz. And so any physical thing you're going to take is always going to have an end. So from where are you taking proof that these things have no end? So yesh lemer, we can explain it like this. Kol geshem mitzad yoseh geshem behechach yesh lemetzias mikol mokom. Miderech hametzias hiliyas inin memutze ben shnei hafechim. It says when you find something physical, this physical thing has received existence from somewhere. And in this existence, there will always be an intermediary between what was giving life to this physical thing and the physical thing that's receiving it. There's something in between, like a physical body. A human being has a body. There are parts that are between the physical body and the spiritual spark that's controlling it. And this is what allows the spiritual spark to create the body. So the body doesn't have existence in and of its own. It's receiving it from an intermediary that's between the body and the spiritual force that's giving it life. So for example, air. Air is something that's an intermediary between fire and water. It's hot like fire and it's wet like water, and therefore it can be in between them. So fire and water cannot mix, but air that came out of water can mix with fire because it's going through an intermediary. It can become something else. The same goes for the intelligences and the physical bodies. There are certain things that exist that are intermediaries between the physical and the intelligences that have no shape and have no size and exist beyond time. The philosophers say everything that exists and gets destructed is physical. Whatever doesn't receive existence and isn't destructible is not physical. And so the philosophers who imagine the world wrong, so they come to all kinds of wrong conclusions. One of the wrong conclusions they came to was that whatever is happening outside the atmosphere, because it's indestructible, let's say the sun, or the moon, because it seemed to them that these things have permanent existence. And so they claim that these things are not physical, because everything physical has destruction. And since the sun doesn't get destructed, it means it's not physical. Today we know that the sun is physical. Today we know that the moon is physical. But back then, these philosophers were imagining that they have the right principles, and therefore their calculations of what's real are accurate. And so they came to the conclusion that everything outside the atmosphere of Earth that seems to be permanent is not physical. As it says, and so the more you go close to the name is the very root and cause of everything that is, which includes the 10 spheres and the 22 vessels that receive their light, and the beginning of manifestation, the beginning of the soul that directs all the material and all that exists on all levels. The closer you go to him, the more distant you're going to be from the physical, and the more closely you're going to be aligned with the intelligence that has no end, that is completely united, and even the aspects of it cannot be visible. It's all just one simple intelligence that reacts to all with exact accuracy. And so, for example, the human soul is an intermediary between the collective soul that is more simple than the human soul, that is more intelligent than the human soul, that is more aligned in its unity than the human soul. And yet, compared to the physical, the human soul is completely united. The human soul is completely undefinable. The human soul is complete intelligence. And so, compared to the physical that the soul is animating, the soul is the divine. Compared to the unity from where the soul receives its existence, the soul is like a body. וכסר עליון, מצד זה, לא השיג גם שיר וזה ותכליס אין לקץ. So it says the highest crown from where everything comes forth, the intelligence that says that receive from this highest crown, and the physical that receive from these intelligences, the closer you go to them, the more you lose boundaries. You lose any way of defining. You lose any way of creating any restriction that might apply to them. And so therefore, this is the proof of the infinite. The physical defies infinity by its very nature. And yet, because the physical is animated by intelligence, the deeper we go, the more we get to know intelligence, the more we see the light from where the physical has received existence, the closer we are getting to the infinite. The more we are realizing something that has no boundaries and has no limits. As far as the mind is concerned, the soul is infinite intelligence. As far as the soul is concerned, the divine that gives it life is infinite intelligence. And there are levels upon levels, all the way into infinity. And therefore, there's no end to the power of what we're interacting with. All ends relate to vessels. And so the more the vessel expands, the more is revealed of the light. The light will never lack an answer to the vessel. There will never be a vessel that developed so much that the light says, oh, I ran out of light, I have no more to animate. To the extent the vessel is prepared, the light will appear. And this revelation of light is a revelation of the original intelligence, a revelation of the will, a revelation of the life that was, that the prophets made contact with, and that we are trying to manifest, so that he can be one, and his name can be one, and all can participate in the celebration of his glory. May it happen now.